Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to finish the one part of the series today because I'm doing my spiritual journey. I want to talk about my recovery years today. So I guess it's like I'm at a meeting. What can I tell you? But anyway, one of the things I want to share too is next week, Loretta and I will do some conversations about the lectures we've had next week.
So if you guys have questions that you want me to ask Vince, feel free to email me or you can put them in the chat so that I can ask him next week.
Okay. I want to start off today because we're talking about recovery and the process of recovery. So I want to talk to, I start off with something I say every day. I've been saying it for the past 30 years and I love it. It's called the 9 Step Promises, the promises of recovery. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down we have fallen, we'll see how experiences can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in others. Self-seeking will slip away. Whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. Well, until we know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will see that our service to God, our higher power, or the greater good, has done for us what seemed humanly impossible. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled amongst us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. I really wanted to read that today because I always enjoy sharing, one of the gifts I've been given by God, and that's the gift of recovery. And that's a real big part of my journey and part of my life. And I want to go back and just talk a lot about that today and talk about where my journey has taken me. And as I mentioned last week, my journey connected to recovery, but not in recovery yet, began way back in 1969 when I went to my first 12-step meeting, and my first program was Al-Anon. And like anybody else, I wasn't ready really to do my work. I was too busy going to the meetings because I figured it would help me to help others. I had this disease, it's called codependency. I didn't know what it was back then. I also knew that basically I had this drive inside of me to constantly want to fix people and take care of people. I found out later on that drive I had inside of me was a way for me, to avoid who I was. I basically, as back then, in 1973, stationed in another parish, and I was stationed in, I laugh a lot about this, but I'm sent places for a purpose. The first parish I was in Vineland, New Jersey, where I met my alcoholic pastor, who eventually got me, I got myself into Al-Anon. And I went to my second parish in Atlantic City, which was an all African-American parish, or a poor parish. And I was also the prison chaplain, and I was also teaching at Holy Spirit High School, and probably involved in about 95 other things too. My problem was, in those years from 69 to 73, probably the best way I could describe it was, my head went in the door, my backside went out the door. I don't know where I was during that time. I was too busy on that quest of mine because I still could not understand what they were talking about when they talk about the concept of working on yourself. Because see, back then, since I was a priest, I didn't think I needed any work. Yet, I didn't realize how empty I was. And while I was at that parish, some very strange and wonderful things happened to me, which kind of brought me deeper into recovery. One of the things that happened to me was I was running around the cell like such a nut, involved in so many things. And it will take me the rest of the session today to really go through all the things I was involved in, from helping start drug programs down to be involved in the civil rights movement. I was involved in so much stuff, it was unbelievable. In 1973, as a result of my activity, lack of sleep, and constantly running, I didn't realize it, but I had developed my own addiction. And the addiction I had developed back then was I was using alcohol as a sedative because I was running around so much and doing so much and really involved in everything. I never went to sleep. And so when I finally did get to my room at night, the only way I could go to sleep was under the influence. And so basically, I never thought myself as an addict because I never drank in public. I did everything in secret, behind closed doors, in the secrecy in my room. All that plus my work and the insanity. In 1973, I had a nervous breakdown. I was in a psychiatric hospital, and typical of an addict, even though I was in a psychiatric hospital or a nervous breakdown, I decided I wasn't having a nervous breakdown, even though I was. I decided I was just going there for a rest. God sends people into your life at very strange times. Now, God sent that gentleman in my life, took me to my first meeting, but God also sent a doctor into my life, a psychiatrist. And that psychiatrist said something to me. He told me that I was spiritually dead, that I was racing and running. I had no idea who I really was. And deep down inside, I was very empty and very lonely. But yet I functioned, I performed, I ran programs, I was teaching, I was doing all kinds of stuff. But he said, you really have no life of your own. And so basically, I didn't like him a lot because I couldn't understand what he was talking about. But he's the first person to introduce me to spirituality and talk to me about spirituality, not religion. He's the first person who separated spirituality from religion. Now, all these things I know were ways in which seeds were being planted in my head. I was only 33 years old, and I was still on the run to do what I have to do. But God has mysterious ways of working things out. While I was in that parish, because I also had another disease, and that disease was that basically I wanted to save everybody. So when I left the hospital, with the grace of God, I put the alcohol down, but immediately picked up two other addictions. One was my eating disorder, and during that period of time after I put the alcohol down, for the next 7 years, I gained 165 pounds, and I clocked in at over 300 and some pounds. My life was insane, it was crazy. I also picked up the disease once again of workaholism, of constantly trying to always be on, and moving all the time, avoiding. Yes, I went to AA meetings. My only problem was from 73 till about 1985, when I finally understood what the hell was going on. I was at what they refer to as a two-stepper. I basically put the alcohol down and jumped right away to the 12th step and decided it was my job to save every alcoholic on the face of the earth. Well, it's funny how God works. There was a gentleman in our parish during that time, and during that period of time also, from those years I talked about, I went over $60,000 in debt from giving money away to addicts. And one of my angels, we always have angels, came into my life at the rectory in Atlantic City. We had a gentleman who was a street wino. He had a fixation with our parish. Every time he got drunk and he got high, he would take his empty wine bottles and throw them either at the rectory. A couple of times he went through the windows. He also would throw them on a basketball court, so we had to interrupt games all the time. He was constantly harassing us like crazy. Probably had him arrested, maybe at least taken away, at least 7 or 8 times. Finally, one day, the doorbell rang at the back door of the rectory, and it was him. And he said to me, "Hey, priest, get in your car, take me to Carrier Clinic. I can't do this anymore. I want to sign myself into the program." Well, he told me it was a 6-month program. I figured I'm getting rid of this sucker. I threw him in my car. I would take him anywhere. I dropped him off at Carrier Clinic. I figured I'll never see this guy again. got rid of him. Well, how God works, and God works in mysterious ways. 6 months later, the doorbell rang at the back door of the rectory. And guess who was standing there? Sonny. He looked beautiful. He was cleaned up. He looked like a normal human being for the first time. And he said to me, I never forget these words. He said, "Hey, priest." He said, "You're an idiot." I said, "What did you say?" He said, "You're an idiot." So you see all that money you give out to addicts, and you get hotel rooms for them, you bail them out of jail, they're using you, they're taking advantage of you. Stop it. He says, "Stop being an idiot. They come to the back door of the rectory, tell them you'll give them treatment, and that's it. I bet you don't get too many visitors anymore." Well, I didn't realize at that time, but I realized I was really enabling people. I really wasn't helping them. And that enabling was something I got into for a long period of time. And it just about destroyed me financially and knocked me out physically. But you know how we work when you're in that kind of a mode? You really think you're doing good for others, and I really wasn't. But then the journey continued, because during that period of time, I was going through a lot of confusion. Didn't know whether I wanted to be in the priesthood, not be in the priesthood. So I was going to meetings. So I took off a leave of absence, went over to Philadelphia, and I got a sponsor finally. But my sponsor was different. He would take me to meetings over there, and he would always give me a mustard seed. He introduced me to the mustard seed meeting in Philadelphia at 1 o'clock in the afternoon at 17th and Sampson. He would give me the mustard seed, tell me to put it in my pocket, that eventually it's going to grow. I didn't know this, but he was setting me up for something. See, we're good at doing this stuff. The next day, I went to a meeting at St. Luke's Hospital in North Philly, 8th and Girard, and I thought I was going to a meeting. Took me into a room. There were 6 people in that room whose names are at our front door here. And basically they told me that I was going to run a halfway house for street alcoholics, and that they had a house for me down in South Philadelphia. Well, back then I was taught by everybody in the program, you say yes. So for some crazy reason, I said yes. And that was the beginning of Starting Point. The original house was in South Philadelphia. And I'm not going to go through all the details about that, because what I just did for the anniversary on Sunday, I wrote up the history, the stories, the things that went into the makeup of that. You can actually get a copy of that if you go to the Starting Point website and go onto Vince's Corner, my YouTube channel. At the bottom it says additional resources, and you'll see right on there the history of Starting Point. You can click and download it, and you find out all the stories, because I could tell you plenty of stories that went on putting that house together. But anyway, the good thing about it was, at that time, I really believed I was in recovery, because I was doing all this stuff and involved in everything. But I had so much confusion going on inside of me, because now I understand what that doctor was saying to me. I didn't know who I really was, where I was going, and what was going on. And yet at the same time, I started Starting Point. I ran the halfway house. I went through a lot of transition, a lot of change. And at that same time, I began in 1980, I began giving a lot of lectures about recovery. Now you got to remember, I was on the run. So I was giving lectures 5 nights a week, giving them in Philadelphia and different places, over here in Jersey. And so basically, I was starting to move forward with Starting Point. In 1984 and 85, a gift happened to us. You know, basically, I look at it, a gift today really wasn't a gift. Someone reported us in our halfway houses to license and inspection. So we had to close the houses because we couldn't afford to keep them open with all the changes we had to make. And so we phased the houses out. I came back to New Jersey because the bishop and I were having a fight, and his philosophy was either you stay in the diocese or you leave. So I worked out a compromise with him. I worked with Starting Point during the week, and on weekends he would send me to parishes. He sent me to a parish in Waterford, New Jersey. And I went to that parish because basically the pastor had cancer. So my job was to take his place. While I was there, I began to give a lot of lectures about recovery, about all kinds of stuff. And I was giving lectures on the 12 steps. And then God sends messengers into our life again. Someone from the parish who worked for a holistic health doctor dropped a letter off at the rectory, and she simply said to me in the letter, "Everything you said is really wonderful and great. Why don't you practice what you preach?" She invited me to go see the doctor because she felt I needed to talk to this doctor. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I got upset. I got angry. How dare her say all these things to me? In the letter, she talked about my car being a garbage dump. And I basically said, I went to see the doctor to prove her wrong. I still didn't see I had any major problems. I went to see the doctor to prove her wrong. Well, that doctor is another angel sent by God. That doctor was the first person to actually identify my eating disorder. He was the first person who began to work with me. He was the first person that scared me because he said the same thing everybody else was saying that I wasn't ready to listen to yet. And now it actually started. It came down to the fact that they basically told me that if I don't deal with my eating disorder, I'm going to end up with diabetes, with a heart attack, with all kinds of problems, at the same time, you got to stand still. Stop saving the world and work on you. Well, I went to see that doctor. Actually, I began the journey of seeing that doctor for the next 5 years, even though I didn't know it at that time. But he really turned me around, got me started in a lot of different ways to look at things I never wanted to look at before. And the interesting thing about it was, during that period of time also, a very good friend of mine went into a rehab, and they usually have like a family week. So I went with the family to the family week. But the only problem was the therapist in family week worked on me instead of working on a lot of other stuff. I didn't realize that what family week was really all about. And she kicked me really hard and told me, you better get yourself into another 12-step program called Overeaters Anonymous. So when I came back from that week, with the help of my therapist and her, I joined the program called Overeaters Anonymous, went to my first meeting in Cherry Hill, and basically was given a sponsor, a very beautiful gentleman. And for the first time, for the next 2 years, I didn't realize it, I was joining a program in OA called the HOW program. And they have a joke for it today. They call it the toughest program ever. I got a sponsor, a great sponsor, Richard, who was also a therapist at Starting Point doing eating disorders. He became my sponsor, but what a sponsor. He gave me some rules. And the rules were, every day you call me at 6 a.m. You give me your food plan for the day, and he gave me a set of 7 different sets of questions. I still have them in my desk drawer. And every day I had to research one of those questions and answer it. People ask me why I know so much about the big book today. If you spend 2 years every day answering questions about it, of course you're going to learn about it. And for the first time, I began to work a rigorous program for 2 years. First time in my life, I actually did the steps. went through the steps, did my fourth step, opened up a lot of doors. I never truly understood what recovery really was all about until I went on that journey. I'm grateful today. A lot of people in the OA program said to me, how could you do that program? It was so strict. I said, don't ask me why, but maybe I was ready. But I know also during that period of time is when I went through some more transition. My therapist still worked with me. The program worked with me, my sponsor. And finally, in 1985, the beginning of 1986, I made a final decision. I never knew this. I was trying to face my fears. I've been in the priesthood now for 20 years. I have been in a seminary for 12 years. I never really had a life on the outside world. And I had a lot of fear inside of me. What would I do if I left? And so finally, I went to the bishop and I said, I made a decision. I'm going to leave. And the bishop said to me, if you leave, you'll have nothing. Because, as you know, if you're in a priesthood, everything's taken care of for you. So when I left, with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, but this time, I had my 12-step program, my recovery community. I have people to support me and help me with this. See, I wasn't alone anymore. I spent too much time alone. And finally, when I left, because I didn't have anything, I actually went on welfare for 13 months. I went on food stamps over in Philadelphia. I actually had to report to the employment office. They didn't have too many jobs for an ex-priest at that time, so we'll see what happens. But the bottom line was, I literally had to start from scratch all over again. And a lot of fears, fear of my family, fear of change, fear of transition. But I am so grateful today that I had an excellent therapist to work with me, a tremendous support system, and people to help me on my journey. And as a result, that's why I read the promises today. Because I know once I was able to cross that threshold and begin a new journey in recovery, and begin to truly work on myself and to clean up my act, and to begin to realize it was time for me to take care of me. And that was scary. But I learned something very deeply. If I don't love myself, how can I love somebody else? I learned how to set boundaries. I learned how to take care of myself as a person. And as a result of that, I also began to change things in my life. My life continued. I was back out in the world now. And I had met somebody who basically I had become good friends with. In fact, it was the lady that helped me get into recovery with the doctor. So later on, a couple of years later, we ended up getting married. I ended up changing my lifestyle again. I ended up inheriting 3 teenage girls who weren't the happiest with me marrying their mom, but that's okay. I joke a lot today because I'm probably the only stepfather who heard a stepdaughter's confessions at one time. You know, a mom comes home and says she's marrying a parish priest. But our journey was different. And this year we'll be married 36 years this year. The journey has taken me in a lot of different directions. And the beautiful thing is, OA helped me tremendously, AA helped me tremendously. But I remember what I realize now. Even when I was in AA, my core addiction was my eating disorder. The one addiction I did not want to look at. The one I avoided like crazy, but the one that will change my life. And it's funny how the journey, even in recovery, takes you. Because I was involved in OA and involved in Starting Point. And Starting Point had moved and grown, and really was now involved in Collingswood, now Westmont, and where we are today. We just keep growing. And I remember going to a workshop. And I never truly understood this. But I went to a workshop that was run by my nutritionist. She asked me to be the principal person for the workshop, to be the retreat master for the weekend. And when I went there, I found out that there was going to be 35 women there. and they're all anorexics and bulimics from New York. And so I did the workshop, but one thing I experienced being around them, I realized not only did I have a compulsive overeating problem, I also had an anorexic problem. Because what I did was I went from over 300 pounds, I went down to about 145, 150. I looked terrible. I got addicted to losing weight. And again, I didn't realize this, but purging has a lot of different ways. Mine was I was addicted to the scale, to exercising. I got into laxatives, all those things started to happen, so my addiction kicked into a different direction. And I was very grateful to finally be able to transition and begin the process of growing. So I was in OA, I then joined the program called ABA, Anorexics and Bulimics Anonymous, which I actually got that program started at Starting Point, and there were 6 members. And one day I walked into the program, and a lady was there from Philadelphia who was part of another 12-step program called EDA, Eating Disorders Anonymous, which is for compulsive overeaters, anorexics, and bulimics. Introduced us to what they refer to as the Big Book of Recovery, the one I read from today. And basically, the program changed, and then the pandemic came along, and we then went on Zoom, and there was like 6 or 7 of us that went on Zoom, continued the program, working a recovery program together on Zoom. And then from there, eventually it grew to where our Monday meeting, which by the way still meets today, it's EDA, Eating Disorders Anonymous. But we meet on Zoom, and we have over 42 people in the meeting now from all different parts of the country. In fact, my sponsor in my recovery program, my eating disorder recovery program, lives in California. And I work with my sponsor every week for an hour and a half on Zoom. Then we started the second meeting on Fridays at 11 o'clock. And now we have an in-person meeting here at Starting Point on Saturday mornings at 10:30. So the program has grown. I've grown with it. I really love it. I love my sponsor. I love the things I'm involved in, the things we're doing. But I know now I need my 3 meetings a week. I need my sponsor. I need to work with myself and my body. And my life has changed dramatically from the beginning. My life has changed, and I read the 9-step promises because I read them every day, because so many of those promises came true. And I learned this in recovery. If you truly open up your hearts, you have the willingness to change and grow, you have the willingness to really do your work, then miracles will happen. And I saw the miracles. You know, I never thought I could write books in my whole entire life. But God sends miracles into our life. I always tell the story, my first book was Relationships, the Gifts of Life. And I was basically giving a talk out at Malvern, one of the rehabs I worked in. And basically, after the talk, I was talking to a lady having a cup of coffee. And I just said to her, someday I'm going to get somebody to take my lectures, transcribe them. I use it as manuscripts for a book. And this lady who I never met before said to me, not a problem, Vince, I did it already. She brought in the manuscript for my first book the following week, handed it to me. And then a good friend of mine from the Philadelphia Inquirer helped me edit it and put it together. And every one of my books that I've written, I've had help. People guiding me, helping me, showing me the way. Because I've learned one of the big secrets of recovery is to ask for help and ask for guidance, ask for direction. Don't do it on your own. It doesn't work. I have so much gratitude to the recovery program. I look at the rewards. You know, I have 3 beautiful stepdaughters. I've got 7 beautiful grandkids. I just inherited 3 more grandkids because 3 of my grandkids just got married, so now their spouses automatically become my grandkids too. So now we're up to 10. I'm beginning to experience so many things I've never experienced before in my life. Talents and gifts and things you do in different directions. But the doors keep opening. That's why I believe in those promises. I believe that if we do our work and truly work on ourselves, then the messengers are there all the time. We got to start listening to them. You never know where it's going to go. Seeds get planted. You know, it's interesting how I got seeds planted way back in 69 and 73. But I really didn't let those seeds become active in me until the 80s. Because I wasn't ready. And we all go at our own pace. And even Sonny, the guy that called me an idiot, I was a priest. You know, we just buried him recently. He just died. God rest his soul. We have a plaque up on the wall in the lecture hall to him. But I used to meet him over at one of the meetings. He was in a wheelchair in his 90s. Every time I walked in the door, he'd say to me, "Are you still an idiot?" And I say, "Sonny, I'm only half an idiot. Now I'm getting better." So we still joked. We still had fun together. And I'm learning over and over again, there's so many gifts that we have that don't get discovered until you open yourself up. But only when you do work on yourself and invest in you. And now I understand spirituality. And I know the true meaning of it is to come to an awakening of your personal spirit, to come to a sense of yourself as a person, and to realize over and over again the 12 steps are one of the greatest gifts God has ever given me. Because the 12 steps are 12 principles of life. There are 12 principles that give you life. They give you self-love, self-awareness, self-discovery, a good sense of yourself. And the founders knew exactly what they were talking about. You'll notice the first 11 steps are for us to work on ourselves. Having done our work, then we carry the message. Of course, I had to do it backwards. I had to carry the message and then do my work and then continue carrying the message. But today, no. I have a life today. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life. I've discovered things I never knew I'd be able to do. But doors have opened for me in different directions. And I have so much gratitude for that today. But I've learned something in recovery. You got to pass it on. You got to share the gifts that were given to you and share them with others. And they will come back 100-fold. And so today I'm very grateful. So much gratitude for all the people in my life, for the people I've come across, for the messengers, the teachers. I go in the front door and starting point. There's a plaque on the wall. List of the first 6 founders that put this program together back then. I'm not the only one. 6 of us put it together. And I looked at the wall and realized I'm the only one still alive. So I guess I'll have to join them sooner or later. But the bottom line is, life goes on. I look at a brick that's out there from the original house in Philadelphia. One of my friends, Jerome, went there at 2 o'clock in the morning when they were tearing the building down and took one of the bricks and brought it back to me. You know, so basically we could have a remembrance of the old houses from back then. So many memories, so many things. You know, I got books with pictures in the archives and things that go back so many years. And I'm grateful for all of it. And I'm trying to keep it all together so people in the future will be able to see it and see what it's really all about. I go into the lecture hall here and our memorial wall. Close to 1,300 names are on that wall. And many of them are people that have gone through the doors of Starting Point, that are connected to us in one way or another. It's called family. And so recovery to me really means I'm still on the journey. I haven't finished my book yet, by the way. I don't know how much longer I've got. I hope that one day at a time we'll see where it goes. You know, people ask me, when are you going to retire? I said, 5 years after I'm dead. I don't have a retirement plan. As long as I can stand up, as long as I can share, as long as I can stay connected, I want to stay connected. Because I really believe every one of us in this room is a channel from God. Every one of us is a messenger. Every one of us has a story. And your story is the greatest story on the face of this earth. Don't sell yourself short. Those promises tell us if we truly do open our hearts and have a sense of faith, everything will come to us. And this, isn't it amazing? From a beautiful little group of guys who got together in 1939. I joke about this a lot. A bunch of recovering drunks got together and put this program together. Did they really think that it was going to expand and go into all the other different 12-step programs? That's sure not. They're concerned with one thing, not picking up that drink. But the program has opened the doors in so many ways today. It helps so many people in so many directions. And I'm grateful for that today. You know, as a result of this program, I know I'm probably a lot healthier today than I was back when I was 40 years old. And I'm grateful. I had the honor of becoming 84 this past Friday. I'm grateful for every year and every moment. But so much gratitude. You know, on Friday night, I had a birthday party with all my grandkids present, all my family present. It was really beautiful, first time in a long time. I even have a grandson who's in Taiwan with his wife, and they couldn't be there, but they put them on with Zoom. They zoomed them in so they could be part of the party too. You know, so what a 12-hour difference. It's just amazing, amazing. And you know, I'm no different than anybody else. I really thought Zoom was a crazy thing, but now all of a sudden I realized I met so many beautiful people in recovery over the years. I have connections all around now. You know, and I love posting on Facebook. I love doing things, using my gifts, using my talents in whatever way I can. But I'm grateful. And so I guess my closing thing is to say a prayer of gratitude. Gratitude for the journey and gratitude for whatever will be. I remember speaking at a AA anniversary over on Christian Street years ago. When I walked in the door, they had this big sign that said, I am grateful for today. I am grateful for yesterday. I am grateful for whatever will be. To live your life in gratitude is what life really is all about. And so I come today and say, be grateful for every moment we have, for all the things that go on in our journey, and realize we're all just part of God's journey. And so let us pray. God, we come before you in prayer. We ask the God of our understanding, our divine presence, to allow us to approach you in a spirit of gratitude and love. Thank you so much for the journey. Thank you so much for teaching us on the journey. Thank you for all the messengers and teachers that have crossed our path that are part of our life. Thank you for the path itself. Teach us to be able to look within ourselves and realize our gifts, our talents, our strengths. And teach us to know that if we pass it on, it'll be passed back to us. So help us, Lord. Guide us, protect us. Be with us on the journey. For the journey is beautiful. The journey is special. The journey may be painful sometimes, but that's okay too. And from our struggles comes our growth. And we're grateful for that. And so we pray for each and every one of us, those that are here with us today and those from wherever they are, that their journey may be their journey within themselves to begin to understand who they are. The journey to their spirit, the journey to their gifts and their talents. So we pray and we ask this in a very deep way today. We come in gratitude, we come in love, we come in humility, but above all, we accept the reality of who we are and be able to share it with others. Then it'll become stronger inside of us. We pray and we ask this in this guidance in your name. Amen.